Welcome to the Hustle or Bust podcast powered by Paverart. Our mission is simple: to dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, small business, and all the success, struggle, and challenges that need to be confronted in the pursuit of growth. We celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit, but perhaps most important, we want you to learn at least one idea that you can put into action immediately to make your investment in time worthwhile. On this episode, we look into the mirror and critically evaluate a crucial time of year, summer. More specifically, where we fell down, why, and the flip side, what worked. Just in time for a hidden gem of a holiday, Labor Day. Today's podcast, the episode is called The Dog Days of Summer and a Tip of the Hat to Labor Day. And as I understand it, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be reviewing some of the plans that we had before we got into the summer. We were planning to do these during the summer, and some of the successes, some of the failures, quick reviews. I think we want those folks who are kind enough to listen to the podcast, who are hopefully getting something out of it, at least one thing out of it, give them an understanding of, hey, just because we talk about something doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to be successful. A lot of the time it is, but some of the time it isn't.
Well, let me comment on that.
Sure.
If we're 90% talking about success, then we're full of shit, I think, especially in the world of small business, don't you? If we talk about things being 80% a grind, by definition, we're not killing it every single day. We're struggling too. So,
sure.
Talking about the summer, let's do a critical self-evaluation of the failure as well.
Now, and I think that's a great approach. And I think, the exposure, full exposure, you're just kind of opening up. I think that's really key. I think that's very, very important. Now,
my wife would call it being vulnerable. Don't make fun of me. I'm not going to cry in a fetal position.
Chicks dig that.
Chicks dig the vulnerability.
I've been waiting 5 weeks to throw that back
Chicks
in your
dig
face.
the accordion.
God, vulnerable. Mark's vulnerable, everybody. One of the things that I thought was interesting about this, because you wrote the title to this episode, and a tip of the hat to Labor Day. Talk to me about your thoughts on Labor Day, which is coming up, and that's when this episode is going to actually be published.
I've written a couple blog posts. Labor Day is my favorite holiday, and I think the blog post I wrote that I first talked about, this might have been like 7 or 8 years ago, where I talked about Labor Day. And Gartner research, I Googled, all right, what's America's favorite holiday?
Sure.
And they measure it by generations, by male, by female. They cut the data a number of ways. Here's the ranking that's pretty consistent through the ages. Number 1 holiday in America, Christmas. That's what people say their favorite holiday is. Then Thanksgiving, 4th of July, Easter, Halloween, and New Year's. So Labor Day doesn't make the cut for the top 6, which I find odd. But for me, it's my favorite. Now, why is that? Well, growing up, I didn't develop my love for work and work ethic and all the struggles until later in life as I became an adult and somewhere, I don't know, maybe mid-20s or so. Mm-hmm. But Labor Day, in my town of Scotch Plains, New Jersey, we've got a tradition. It's the St. Bartholomew's Italian Festival. Mm-hmm. So Scotch Plains is predominantly people from Mendozoli, Italy. They immigrated to Scotch Plains. There's a big cluster there. We've got an Italian-American hall. We've had this Italian festival since, I think, 1971. So this thing's going on 50 years.
Wow.
50, with the exception of COVID. So when COVID hit and the feast was shut down, that was like, wow. This thing is really disrupting life, because the Italian festival, it's a Labor Day weekend.
It's a gut punch.
Yeah, it is. It's a gut punch for the town. It's a small little town. It's run by the same people that run the San Gennaro's Festival in New York City. So growing up in Scotch Plains, the Italian festival was like the end of summer. It was like your last hurrah to see all your friends that you didn't see all summer long. And it's Labor Day weekend, so it's right before school starts. School starts typically that Wednesday. Labor Day is a Monday. So it would be that thing that everyone kind of planned their end of summer. If you had a shore house, you were coming home for the Labor Day weekend for the Italian festival. So part of me growing up was Labor Day weekend was always the Italian festival. So I just love Labor Day, right? It was a chance to reconnect with all the friends. As I got older, it was really about what makes America tick and what makes it special. And in my mind, everyone's got their own view of what the American dream is. Mm-hmm. to me, I think about, in the 1920s, I'm fascinated by the black and white pictures of construction workers having lunch on a beam. I think about my grandparents who immigrated from Italy. To me, immigrants are the ultimate entrepreneur. They come from wherever they came from, Italy, El Salvador. They come to America not knowing what they're coming for opportunity for a better life,
Sure.
right? So I think about that, and I think about they got to get jobs. They got to start working, right? They got to be productive members of society quickly. So when I think about Labor Day and work ethic and what America's all about, entrepreneurship, starting businesses, working hard, making a better life for yourself, whether you have a degree or not, based on your sweat, your ability to work hard and provide value for others, that became more and more entrenched as I got older as an adult. So those are some of the reasons why I like Labor Day. Started when I was a kid. That Italian festival was a big deal, and then thinking about immigrants and coming to the country, work ethic, and there's a correlation between work ethic and success in America. There's a luck factor too, but work ethic is a big determinant of success in our country.
You certainly can't have success. Getting lucky and being successful, there has to be a work ethic component. There's no question about that in my mind. I just would reject any notion of otherwise.
And here's another detail. I think people in Memphis. When I lived in Memphis is oppressively hot. It's like 95 degrees and humidity is like 150%. I mean, it's like raining without raining in Memphis in the summer. And I'm a heat sissy. I'd rather be freezing than sweating all day long. So
Me too.
Not that I like the winter and the bitter cold, but I think I would take that. It's easier to warm up than it is to cool down in that kind of heat, in my opinion.
Sure.
So Labor Day, the summer starts to break a little bit. I love early fall, late summer. I mean, when the weather starts going into the low 80s, high 70s, and you can wear a hoodie, that's perfect. So I think Labor Day kind of is the start of breaking the heat. So that's my thought. What do you think? Labor Day, big deal for you?
Labor Days.
Are you closer to the 6th like the rest of the country, or?
I'm not as esoterically tied to it as you are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in a very ineffectual way and in an informal way, every day to me is Labor Day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's just you're applying what you do every day as best you can. Now, Labor Day gives you a 3-day weekend.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to, if you want to contemplate that, that's fine. I'm not contemplating it.
Right.
I'm taking those 3 days because I earned them.
Right.
Okay, and I'm using those 3 days to probably do more work around the house. But one thing that we always do, my brother-in-law has a big party on that Saturday or Sunday of that weekend, and the whole family gets together. And he's got a pool, he's got the big deck, we got the music going. He's either caught the crabs or we're getting them from some local distributor, shrimp, hot dogs, the whole 9 yards. It's just the adult libations are flowing.
Right.
It's a really, really, really good time, and we all look forward to it. That's the way I approach it. My guess is most Americans approach the weekend that way.
The last party of the summer.
It is. It's the
Yep.
last party of the summer, but it is a celebration
Celebration of work.
of what you did
Right.
for that entire summer and even before the summer. And the fact that it's not, I wonder if it made the top 10 list. Okay.
It's
But
not
it didn't make the top 6.
Didn't make the top 6.
Okay.
At its core, it's a celebration of work.
Sure.
People that work, right? And there's something, I think that is, I don't care what your job is. You could be working at McDonald's. You could be a CEO of a company. There is something about, that's what makes our economy go. It's the exchange of time for money or goods and services for money. The basic of our system doesn't work without work. So one holiday a year that recognizes whatever it is that you do, let's celebrate and give a tip of the hat to the American worker.
Well, it's interesting to me that we've chosen Labor Day as that part of this year, because the way we look at the business year, we look at it fiscally from
Quarters.
Jan 1 to December 31st, and
You're more than halfway through.
exactly.
Right.
By the time Labor Day shows up, which is technically when people, they shutter their shore homes. They're not going on vacations anymore.
They're getting ready
because
for fall.
The kids are going back to school.
Yep.
Not a bad time for a business to take a look back on what you did during those summer months especially if you had plans to get things done during those summer months. Why don't we take a look at what some of those plans
It's a
were?
good transition because Labor Day is, what is it, September 5, I guess it's. So you're, 8 months through the year.
Yeah.
So your year is projectable. July 1, you got halfway through, you can double it. But now you got another 2 months under your belt. So as a business with fairly decent certainty how your last 4 months of the year is going to shake out and how your year is going to finish. So Labor Day is a great time to take a pulse check of the business. So let's dive into the summer.
Why don't we take a look?
Do a self-assessment, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Let's do a self-assessment, and start with the ugly.
Right.
Okay, and end up with what I would consider to be a pretty
You go
significant
first.
success. Oh my! Well,
and by the way, we're going to hopefully as people listen, they have a little bit of a template on how they should self-assess, look in the mirror of their summer to evaluate their business. Hopefully, learn something from it. But we'll go through in humbleness and brutal honesty what we think of our summer.
Sure. We went into this summer. Well, every summer is the same thing. We need extra help from, let's just say, May to the end of September. That's really where the numbers explode. That's where the demand for the product goes through the roof. It's expanded in the last 3 or 4 years. You could probably say now March is when this starts, and it ends sometime just before Thanksgiving. But it really doesn't end because we have projects that fall into December, January, February from orders that were taken in August, September, and October, waiting for materials to come in. So it's every year the busy season gets broader. Before, when we first started the business, the busy season, okay, phones are going to really start ringing in early April. They're going to start dying down in mid-October. Not anymore. It's expanded significantly. But the summertime is when you can get summer help. Now, we've talked a little bit about this in the past. The ability to get summer help has been significantly reduced because not many high school students like they used to back in our day and over the last 30, 40 years, that percentage of students
that are working,
that want to work, has gone down significantly, and they're predicting in the next 5 years it's going to get down to about 24, 25%. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's really low. So it makes the job of finding these students. You got to really, if you started looking in April, you better start looking in March.
Right.
Okay, which is what we did. And we took the opportunity when we were trying to expedite the Brick by Brick program, get that out to students during their career days in March and April. We took that opportunity. Hey, look, we might see some kids. When we create these lists, there might be kids on these lists that might want to work during the summer, and we'll take advantage of that and maybe get an opportunity to evaluate one or two to see if they're interested in segueing into the Brick by Brick apprenticeship program here at Paverart.
Give the numbers. How many people did we talk to at the career fairs? How many hands did we shake?
Easily 100.
Yep.
Easily 100. Now that's 4. We did 4.
Right.
So, and we did one high school twice.
Mm-hmm.
We did one career day during the day, and then we did one in the evening. So we did 4 of these, and I would say conservatively, we shook about 100 hands.
Right.
And I was not optimistic. I was not optimistic in regards to the Brick by Brick. I was optimistic going in, and you have to be, because I think it's a great program. And we're sold on it, and we think it's going to do some really great things, but you have to find the right people, to populate the program. It just didn't seem to me that there was a lot. There wasn't proactive approaches by most of the 100 that we spoke to in regards to, hey, you looking for somebody during the summer?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't optimistic that we were going to get somebody that was going to populate that in a way that's going to be successful, not just for them, but for us.
But 100's a good sample.
And it's 100's a good sample, but let's also understand that the reason we do this is because we need extra help in the summertime. Mm-hmm. We just do. And you never know. That person might stick and want to come in and work weekends or come in and work after school or become part of a co-op program that we can be that part of the co-op. There's all sorts of opportunities here for a young person to do that and get a leg up. 22 is your benchmark year. That's when you would typically be graduating from college. So from high school to college, you've got 4 years. Not everybody's going to go to college. They're going to get out of high school and they're going to want to go right to work. Great place to start is right here at Paverart.
So we found one.
And we found one. And we found one. It was a 50-50 proposition. We found him and he found us. Mm-hmm. And we explained the process. We went through the process. We got him started. We got the team up to the challenge of teaching and explaining all the different parts of the job that this person was going to get involved with. And this person was on board, absolutely on board with this. And it seemed like at the beginning that this was going to be, this looked like it was a pretty surefire win. And we started right out of the chute. The first day, we started mentoring and put him right to work on the typical stuff that you do here at Paverart to get started.
And I gave him a compound interest explanation for 45 minutes.
I was enthralled. You had me.
It was one of my best ones ever.
I was on the edge of my seat.
Right.
And it's not a really big seat, but I was on the edge of it.
But let's go to the end result. What we're building towards is this was a flame out after 6 weeks.
This is a flame out after 6 weeks, and it didn't work with this particular individual, and that's okay. But I think the individual still got something out of this. I think he learned a lot. For someone who did not have, who had never worked before in a work setting, a real work setting, a McDonald's or a Burger King or a ShopRite stocking shelves or delivering newspapers. This, all of a sudden, you're working with the big boys. Okay, you're working with guys that have been doing this for a long time. But we start you slow, and we give you the opportunity to learn, and we make sure that you understand all the basic concepts of this. Get to work on time. Give us a full 8-hour day. Stay productive. Make sure that you're focused on the job that you do. When somebody tells you to do something, you do it as well as you can. And if you have a problem, you come and tell them about it. We come help you fix that, and then we move on to the next project. All that took place. And in this particular case, it didn't work. And what we need to do is we need to retrench. We need to go over the program again. If you're going to do this, this is the evaluation part of expediting any project. Plan, execute, track, evaluate, make changes.
Let's dive in a little. You said it's okay. I think it's a fucking flame out. I think it's the more I look at it and think about it, and I obsess over these things. Mm-hmm. It's a freaking dismal result, mm-hmm. right? You get a kid. The first thing I ask myself is, and when we recruit people, the first thing we do, we try and bring them to the shop.
Sure.
You can't understand the environment unless you see the environment, right?
Correct.
You've got to actually spend a little time on the floor to feel the environment, to feel the heat. Now, because this is summer, right? Mm-hmm. You want to feel the heat, you want to feel the humidity, and you want to kind of stay out there for 10 minutes, and you're going to break a sweat pretty quick. Just the environment, right?
Right.
You want to see people lifting a 30-pound paver. You want to see people building our designs on the floor, kind of get a little feel for it, right? Get your hands a little bit dirty through your eyeballs, right? So the first thing I asked myself is, did we not show them the shop? Well, we did that. We checked off the box. Mm-hmm. Did we not explain the future with the brick-by-brick apprenticeship program, what that all is? Did we expose them a little bit to the mentorship, whether it's compound interest or what?
Yeah, we did all that.
We did all that.
Yeah.
So I'm racking my brains on what went wrong with this.
I think I have an idea. And it goes right back to the concept of a small business. You're wearing so many hats. You've added another hat. You've added the mentor hat. You've added the teacher hat. Mm-hmm. You've added you've spread out the management hat to folks that, for all intents and purposes, they have a job to do over here. And they're doing it every day. And from January to May, this is what they're doing every day, and they do it damn well. We got a great group of people here at Paverart. They work hard, and for the most part, they do a very, very good job. Now you've asked them to be a manager, you've asked them to be a mentor, and to do that in addition to getting their other responsibilities done that require that they get it's important that this stuff get built, packaged, inspected, all the things that we have to do, handling the equipment, maintaining the equipment, ordering replacement supply, all the stuff that it takes to make this business run. Now you've added one more concept here, okay? And that concept is being populated, third time I've used that term, but it's being populated by a human being. It's not a pad of paper, it's not a pen, it's not it's not another bag of material that's going to be used for sandblasting concrete pavers. And that, I'm not so sure that we did a really good job on that. So I think we could have done a better job. If 100% is effective, that's the definition of being 100%, you're 100% effective, we might have gotten to 75. That would be my guess right now, and an honest assessment. And that includes me. So you've given a very good 50,000 square feet review of the kid. Do you hear this? No.
What do you hear right now?
I don't know. Remember now. Hold on a second. I'm not talking about.
Tom, do you hear this?
You want to talk about the kid? I'll talk about the kid. But I'm talking about what we did.
Yep. So
now, I'm talking about the. I'm talking to you.
Tom, what do you hear?
It's dragging your feet.
Let me give a very different review of, because you give a very high level, which I think is
let me explain why, and then I want to hear what you have to say, obviously. Right. But I'm saying that because I'm looking at what we can do, in my mind, to do a better job, because we're going to get another guy or a gal.
So I think the brutal reality of the environment, because you mentioned it, it's the teenage labor participation rate is, let's just say it's in the 30s, projected to go to the 25s.
Right.
So I've coined a new term. It's called the man-child. If you're 18 years old and you've never had a job, you're the mental age in the real world of about 12.
Sure.
You really are. You might look like a young man. You're a man-child mentally and what you've experienced. So now I'm dragging my feet. So what the man-child does, and let's just say it's John Doe, right? Or Flameout, walks like this, drags the feet, literally. And you can hear it kind of like from 30 yards away. Someone dragging their feet and coming along. And it didn't hit me, but I kind of, does this person walk by dragging their feet? It kind of so we're together, we're trying to figure out a coaching session for John Doe. And I mentioned it, this dragging the feet thing, and it turns out 3 other people noticed it, and they've actually tried to correct the behavior. Pick up your freaking feet when you're walking. It's bad body language, right? It's kind of like a Major League Baseball game. When a pitcher, you can tell when a pitcher has lost all concentration and they're pissed off at themselves. They gave up a grand slam. Their shoulders are drooped. The body language.
And what's that mean? The most important thing, he's not in the game anymore.
The body language is a tell. That's exactly right. So when a manager sees that pitcher with slooped shoulders, they're done. That's a leading indicator. They're out of the game mentally. They're not going to be effective on that next hitter. You got to get them out, right?
Exactly.
Dragging the feet, their body language is manifesting itself through that freaking annoying sound. Now, what I didn't know is people have coached them on it. And I just kind of, there were, when I say people, our team, our John, Brian, yourself. I was slow to the take on it, but it penetrated my thick skull where that's freaking annoying me. So then I come to find out we've coached him on it, and he's still doing it, right?
Yep.
All right, so the man-child, you don't have experience. You come into the workplace, you're getting coached on your body language has got to signify that you want to be here. When it's manifesting itself like the pitcher that gave up the grand slam, that, all right, we got to correct that behavior. So we try to correct the behavior, and the feet keep dragging. So we got a problem here, right? If we can't seem to break through man-child tendencies and give experience, and they don't take our lead, there's going to be a problem, right? Now, eventually so I think you were right. The one learning for me was, that thing annoyed me. Does anyone else notice this? Oh, yeah, they noticed it, and they gave direction, and John Doe didn't correct that behavior. All right, well, then the question becomes, are there other things that are cropping up that are similar to this?
And did that affect that 75% effectiveness that I said about our teaching capability, not 100, but 75, was that because the people who were responsible for that, and actually we're all responsible for that, you're teaching, I'm teaching, or the guys in our factory are teaching. Does that influence their behavior to the point where they say,
They check out?
This
Ain't gonna
guy's
work.
just not interested.
It very well could
he's
be.
really not interested. But my point is, you have to power through that, okay, and keep doing it. At some point, that person might turn, but you only give it so much. What have we learned here in the last 4 years? We are not going to drag our feet
Right.
with, employee issues. We're just not going to do that.
But 90 days is a pretty good window. The general standard in business is 90 days.
And we didn't get there.
When you get there, we didn't even get halfway through it.
Yeah.
We kind of approached the halfway mark. Now, look, the dragon of feet, I'll give you an example that played out. There was actually a mini fire this person created. He's cutting board, and it's a rare occurrence, but you can create safety issues, right?
Sure.
So, creates a fire, was cutting board, friction happened, and the thing got up in flame. Well, what does he do? Kind of panics, but he drags his feet over to someone else to put out the fire. Now, in life, it's kind of metaphorical. A fire is urgency, right?
Right.
If you create a fire and you need someone to help you put it out, wouldn't you sprint? If ever there was a time to sprint, it's when a fire is happening. Or we're dragging our feet over to someone else to help. And, of course, that person moved with urgency to put it out. So the dragging of the feet and lumbering along while there's a fire, I'm like, I don't know if someone can recover from that. It's an image in my head. They create a fire, they drag their feet and lollygag. Remember, Bull Durham, you lollygag onto the field. Lollygagging over to a manager to put out the fire for them. That's hard to recover from, right? So now it turns out there's probably 30 things we could have done better. But can we ever correct the man-child tendencies of dragging the feet, starting a fire, and then lumbering along to casually put this out? I don't know if we can ever correct that.
Were you that way? Ever?
I'm sure at some point in my life I had to be kicked in the ass. But at some point,
I got kicked in the ass at 15.
The difference is you and I both worked, right? So I think the biggest problem in America, if I were to rank them, is not the college debt thing. These freaking kids aren't working until 22.
We
got man-childs at 22, and I don't want to go on a rant on this, but this is a man-child at 18, and you and I both said we take the 18-year-old over the 22-year-old, and I think we still would.
We still will.
But we got a problem here. Now, I was looking at Ray the other day. Now, let's give a shout-out. Now we're not going to use John Doe. We're going to use Raymond Jenkins, one of our guys. He's 16. He's been now with us for 2 years and I think 3 months. I'm looking at him the other day, and he's a basketball player. What do you think? He's 6 feet?
We've seen him grow.
Literally grow. And this kid's got a smile.
We've seen him get thicker.
All right. Ray's got a smile that he looks like a mini Denzel Washington. I mean, he's got a smile that lights up the room. We're looking at him, and he had a shirt on. I think it was Tupac, and Brian said something. We get into this discussion. What was the movie with Tupac and Janet Jackson? Not Poets, Poetic Justice. So we're talking, and he didn't know what that was, but we're talking about it, and we're talking, hey, you're lifting? And I'm like, how long has this kid been with us? Because he looks like a different kid, and, it hits me. I'm like, 2 years and 4 months. And he goes out there, and we had to kick Ray in the ass, by the way, about 6 months ago. And I'll never forget Ray's reaction. Right? This is a shout out to Ray, and didn't mean to go into it, but Ray, I'll give a story. Ray got the feel for what it's like to earn money as a young kid. Let's say he was 15 years old, right? He's got money in. He comes from the school, gets the bus, comes in, and he's like, "Hey, I'm hungry. Would it be okay? I've never ordered a pizza, but will somebody deliver here?" "Yeah, Ray, local pizzeria. Get it on the phone." Pizzeria delivers the pizza. So, Ray gets here at 3. Pizza gets here at 3:30. I'm like, oh shit, he ain't gonna start until. But let him experience what it's like to have independence. That's what money gives you.
Sure.
Good learning opportunity. You and I were in a room. We hear a knock on the door. A half hour later, he opens the door. Guys, and I'm looking at him like, oh shit, what's going on? There's a hair in my pizza. I'm like, oh shit. All right, Ray. Well, what do you want me to do? You want me to? Are you expecting me to pull it out for you? He's like, and Mike would. So I said, Mike, what would you do if you had a hair in your pizza? Well, I think you said. You might want to call him up and tell him, somebody made a mistake. And, well, do I have to eat this? No, you don't have to eat this. This is a free country. You can do whatever you want. They might bring you a free one, but call them up and explain it. Life learning or stuff. So we called him up, and a new pizza was on his way. He opened the door, big smile on his face. Pizza's coming. All right, so new pizza's coming. Gets a new pizza. Now we're at like 3:45, 3:50. So, but he's happy. He's eating, right? So now 4 o'clock comes
Well, let's
around.
explain so everybody understands too. He's working after school.
That's right. So we had a long day at
here as
school.
early as he can. Well,
Right.
that's right.
And I'm not going to kick him in the ass. Look, when you get here and you sign in, you got to be working.
Yeah.
You don't get here and start taking your lunch break. But let's let this thing play out, right? So the pizza comes, he's happy. So he's all fed, he's happy, and now we're like 4:10 and we're closing shop at 4:30, right? So the next day, Nick, we had a whole slate of work for him that was supposed to be done, and he got let's just say he had 50 things to do, and he got 5 things done.
Right.
Not because he's a bad worker, because he started too damn late. If you start the race an hour and a half later, you're not going to catch up to the group, right?
Exactly.
So Nick comes in the next day, and he was livid, right? And he was like, "What the f did Ray do?" And we're like, "Well, look, Ray didn't. He had a pizza episode, right? So we call the pizza. So long story short, we sit Ray down and we're giving him the feedback. And Ray, I'll never forget it. He puts his head down, and then I'm like, "Oh shit! I hope we're not demotivating the kid about the whole thing." He goes, "You know what? You're right." And I used a basketball analogy. Ray, could you do that in a basketball game on the varsity and get away with it? And he kind of got that right away.
Right.
And he's a basketball player. He's like, "You know what? Thank you for the feedback." And then you know what else he said? And I'm like, "Man, this kid's mature beyond his years." But he's getting a little life coaching session in the adult world of working.
Yeah.
15 years old. Then he goes, "You know what? You guys used to have a goal board on a whiteboard, and you'd give me 2 or 3 things to do. But we stopped that over the past 6 months, so the light bill's going off. Can we go back to that?" I swear, if I didn't want to get up and hug this kid right there. He's coaching us now and how to manage better and lead. And I'm like, hell yeah, we can. I'm like, this kid is mature. So anyway, so fast forward now, 8 months later, he's knocking it out of the park. He got corrected. He's learning from it. He's getting stronger. And now we're talking about the Poetic Justice movie. And I'm like, Ray is 16 years old. Now, Ray starts with us at 14. If you would, let's say Ray hangs with us, as he's showing every sign, until he's 18. Compare John Doe to what Ray's going to be at 18.
It's no comparison.
You can't compare the two.
No, absolutely not.
You got man baby.
Let's not forget
to Ray.
I'm the guy that if I give you something to do, you know what your responsibilities are, map it out, get this done. When you're finished, clean your work area, put your tools away, come see me, I'll give you your next job.
Yep.
Okay. Ray is to the point now where we can give him several because he's so well trained in certain specific areas in our shop that you can do that. You can plan out his entire 3 or 4 hour slot of time.
Now,
But when he gets something done, let's say he's completed whatever that task is that you've given him, he comes, knocks on the door. "Hello, come on in." He comes in. "I'm done." Big smile on his face. And just big smile. "I'm done. Ready for my next job."
So we're starting to win.
You can't.
And Brian said this: if you're a teenager and you got your first job, and let's say you're 14 or 15, and you're part of a competitive sport,
Right.
basketball, that's a whole different element. You know what it's like to not let your teammates down, right? So that's a whole different element he's got. So you got John Doe, 18-year-old man-child, because he's got no experience. No disrespect to John Doe.
Right.
And you got Ray, 2 years younger, but he's got 2 years of experience. There's no comparison these two. You got a 16-year-old kid lapping an 18-year-old kid just because he's got the work experience and what other intangibles that you got there. So I parlay this. So I send a note to...
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So now Ray is like the shining star, right?
Right.
So I sent a note to Camden County Technical Schools, and I'm like, look, we need, number one, we got your kid here. One of your kids, your students, love the kid, right? He's got a great future ahead of him.
Camden County Votech.
Votech, right. Well, and I'm like, look, we got this brick-by-brick apprenticeship program. We got this growing business. We got to specialize. We're the only ones in America that do this. We got technology. We've got to have a closer working relationship, Votech, with Paverart, right? Lo and behold, she sends a note back to me. She says, look, we just got a $5 million grant on advanced manufacturing practices. Would you consider being an advisor? I'm like, hell yeah, I would. What do we got to do? And she goes, we'd like to send our team, our administrative, the people that are doing the grant, we'd like to get pictures of Ray at his job. I'm like, look, I'll go one further. We got a video guy. We got a podcasting guy, Dominic. Let's figure out how to promote the program. Let's have a real working relationship, and we'll do it on our dime, right? So now Ray is, because he's part of the team Paverart, he's now going to be part of something even bigger. Now look, he's earning all that.
He made the shirt.
Ray is right here. He made the freaking shirt. He is part of the superheroes, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, back to holding ourselves accountable. Flame out number 1, John Doe, 6 weeks. We were optimistic, And for 35 reasons, half of them ours, let's say, half of them John Doe's responsibility, absolute flame out. And this has been going on since March, trying to get one person. And we got nothing to show for it right now other than experience, which will make us better.
And we would call that a failure.
Yeah, so that's a failure. So being vulnerable. All right, what else in the summer comes to mind?
But keep one thing in mind. Raise the person that gives, I think it gives us hope that there's more Rays out there.
That's right.
And you can't downplay the concept that when the person wants to work, when they're done doing whatever task they've been assigned, they come to you and say, "I'm ready. What's my next job?" And you better be ready. You don't look very good if you haven't planned that out. But
what's Ray going to look like at 18 if he continues on this path? That's the question.
Has it?
We saw him at 14.
Has this leaked into his? Because he takes basketball very, very seriously, and quite frankly, from what I understand, he's really good at it. So, I mean, has that work ethic bled into that also? It doesn't go away. These things just
work ethic.
It just
work
doesn't.
Ethic.
It just doesn't happen at Paverart. Okay. I mean, you just this permeates every part of your life. When you leave here and you go home. By the way, another interesting fact too. There are times when I'll ask Ray, okay, Ray, when will you be in here tomorrow? This will be around 8:00. Okay. All right, great. We'll expect to see you then. He shows up at 8:30, 8:45. Everything okay? I couldn't get a ride today. Both my parents had responsibilities on their jobs, and I couldn't get a ride in. And my brother is working, so I had to walk.
Right.
Well, that's about I'm going to estimate that's about a 2-mile walk. Okay, and in a Jersey summer, where 95 degrees and matching humidity is not unusual, and we're in the middle of that right now. I just think that's pretty good too. That's
right.
very, very. It's very, very interesting that you get a kid he doesn't want. You get the definite impression he doesn't want to let his fellow employees or us down here at Paverart.
Look, I got to go on a little bit of a commentary on parents. Number one, shout out to Ray's parents.
100%. 100%.
I met the father. I don't know if I met Ray's mother.
I met both the mother and the father, and they're wonderful people. And I think they truly appreciate the fact that Ray's got this opportunity. They're hardworking people. From everything that Ray's told me and from speaking to them.
And I think his brother David's going into, the Air Force. He's going into military service.
I thought that's what I heard.
So God bless them. And a great family here, right?
Exactly.
Ray is taking direction from his family, all the people around him. Shout out to his parents. They're doing a fantastic job.
Sure.
There's a ton of if 30% of all teens are working, that means 70% are not. Now, we can figure out what are they doing, what are they not doing. They're not working, right? So maybe they're going to school prep, maybe they're going to camp, maybe they're just going at the Jersey Shore, whatever it is. But I can't look at Ray and compare him to the non-Rays that choose not to work and say the non-Rays, the other 70%, are going to be better off. I just can't look at it. And I'm biased because I grew up working, right? I don't care how much money you have. Ray is learning lessons right now that are going to shape him forever. And when he becomes 18, whatever he chooses, if he wants to go to the military, if he wants to go to college, do an apprenticeship program, or take a shot at parlaying his basketball skill, these 4 years of high school where he's working 10 hours a week, 20 hours in the summer, whatever, it's transformative to his life. Now, he can't see it right now, what that's going to mean when he's 40 years old. But he is going to look back when he was 14 in his first job and say, my God, didn't know it at the time. He'll remember the pizza story. He'll remember the poetic justice discussion. I mean,
that's right.
But
I've never forgotten mine.
Man-child at 18, no work experience. You can't compete against that. When Ray's 18 and man-child's got to compete with that, there's going to be a problem. Now, that doesn't mean man-child's not going to. The man-child code word for kids with no experience that are now entering the workforce. You start such a leg behind without having work experience. You really do. And you can start that at 22 as a college grad or a high school kid. But we still would take the 18-year-old because we can shape them and they're not going to have debt and all the other things. But it is the learning for me with the flame out on the first brick by brick potential candidate is this 30% teenage labor participation rate is a massive challenge. I don't have the answer for it. I just know this is a problem. That's why we got to get more kids working and advocating for that.
We're going to chalk that up as a failure.
Mm-hmm.
But we've learned from it, and I think we're going to move forward. Obviously, we're not stopping anything.
Next failure on the list.
Well, we had an explosion in orders this year in one particular aspect of our business, and that was the engraved paper business. Now, again, the purpose of this podcast is for us to give some advice, give some guidance, maybe come up with certain ideas that might be helpful for other small business owners. This year, in this particular part of our business, which in the past has been kind of small, we had an explosion in orders for various reasons. But we were going to put more people, summer people, into that department and assist Nick, one of our ace guys. Again, I've said this 100 times. One of the best sandblasters I've ever seen. Meticulous in his work ethic, meticulous in making sure that the processes, the 12, 13, 14 steps that are required, each is done properly. But boy, the challenges that we've been met with in that department, part of which have had to do with the weather and the ability to figure out how we're going to get stuff out the door when being affected by heat, the severe heat and humidity that we've been hit with over the last, I've been saying 3 weeks, now we're into our 4th week. It's been tough. And the people that we've put in there to help out, basically half of them have been pretty good, but the other half not so good. Mm-hmm. And it's put us behind the 8 ball in regards to production, and that's not a good thing.
Well, I think we had, I don't know if it was podcast number 3 or I think it was Going on Offense. Mm-hmm. One of these podcasts, I'm advocating, look, summer's game time. Yeah. Summer's an opportunity to have 2 months where you go wide open. And you can say, all right, at the end of the summer, if you've got the resources and you can get the extra help, you got 2 months, you can multiply that by 6 and see, is your business at a completely different level? And I'm looking at our orders on the books. I'm looking at our available workers that we had more than ever, right? And I'm thinking we can demonstrate we can do a business that's 3 times bigger in 2 months. Now, granted, that's not projectable, but that's the opportunity to say, let's go wide open. We got the resources, we got the sales, now let's get after it, right? And let's just say we did 1/10 of what we thought we were going to do. I mean, it was as flame out as, so the flame out number 1 is the first brick by brick potential candidate. Mm-hmm. Flame out didn't work, and for 35 reasons. Flame out number 2, I thought we would have 2 months in that segment of our business, right, where we would be 5 times bigger. We would demonstrate that we can get it done. To your point, you're right. We lost 4 weeks worth of business, a lot of money. We got to throw everything out. We got to start over, restart in production. And so that was a flame out, and we know all the reasons. But it was a flame out.
Well, we're here to talk about the reasons. Let's talk about one in particular. The idea behind this. Well, the initial idea was we need to throw as many people at this problem as possible. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's position number 1.
Resource it appropriately.
Yep, we're going to resource it appropriately. That's position number 1. Number 2, who's going to be that human resource? Where are we going to get that? Well, what did we wind up getting? We wound up getting, 15, 16, 17-year-olds. And that's okay, but the job, again, you've got the whole work ethic thing. You've got, you're fighting against habits that they don't know are bad habits. And you've got to make sure that they understand that they're bad habits and that they can't be doing
iPhone.
It. If we get into the iPhone, that's a whole nother podcast. In fact, that may be a podcast, a standalone podcast. Right. The iPhone is the single biggest killer of productivity in the United States today.
No doubt.
I don't care. You can throw anything else you want at me. The iPhone is the worst. Absolutely the worst. But anyway. So we knew this going in. So what you try to do is you try to you try to set up scheduling so that they're doing work that's not too mentally taxing, but it's physical work, it's cleaning pavers. What we're trying to do is we're trying to find work that they can easily and quickly understand. Okay, over here you're going to. I'll make this simple. You're taking these pavers from over here and you're going to put them over there. Okay, and when you're done that, you're going to do this to those pavers, and then you're going to take them from over here to over there. Very simple, and they need to be overseen to make sure that they're doing the job that they're supposed to be doing. But the jobs are pretty basic and simple. Somehow or another, that broke down, and I think I know why. The people who would normally be responsible for that are also having to do their own jobs. We've made them responsible, including myself, made them responsible for these people to make sure that they're busy. But there are times when you've got other things that you've got to do. You cannot be there 8 hours. You just can't. It's impossible. You may not be able to be there 6 hours a day. Okay, you may only be able to give them cumulatively 2 hours of your time in 15-minute segments during the day, and that didn't work. I don't think that worked.
Well, we had the weather and we had new people. Two things.
Yeah, the weather. Yeah, but the weather had something to do with it. But we were, and we had this. We had goals and objectives from a production standpoint that we were trying to hit.
Right.
And
which was pushing us
a lot. But you should be pushed.
Right.
We push ourselves individually every day.
Right.
And we've seen the results in the last several years. This business has grown and grown and grown, but it didn't connect. It didn't work.
Right.
And was it the people? Were we expecting too much? Were we not expecting enough?
Well, in relative terms,
were we not giving the proper supervision? Is it a combination of all those items? It could be. It could be. We haven't done. We haven't done the proper bleeding yet.
In relative terms, let's say 35 was our baseline, right? Coming in, we're doing a 35, 35, 35, 35, and then the summer we have a goal to get to 100 each month. So let's just say tripling of our baseline.
Sure.
So we had the resources, we had the sales to get to 100. We had it properly staffed, maybe even a little overstaffed, right? Well, we didn't do 35 going to 50 or 100. We went 35, 35, 5.
Right.
So we did a hell of a lot worse. We overstaffed it. So, I can't think of a more fall from grace than what we had in the summer.
Significant.
Very explainable in all this, but a flame out among all flame outs for a segment of the business for a 2-month goal, right? So the question is, what do you do about it? Because now if you took a whole month's worth of production and you got to throw it out and start over, the question is, what do you do with all your customers? Now you're going to be missing dates and being late on orders. So I learned real quick, the best time to call your number down, if you got to call your number down and that has customer implications, is right away. Don't do death by 1,000 cuts. Rip the Band-Aid off.
Let's you jumped ahead about 3 spots there. Let's go back to the beginning. What you're basically saying is we're going to call the clients,
right,
and we're going to tell them we've had an issue, we've had a problem, give them some, make sure they know, and and be very honest. This is the problem. These are the problems that we've encountered, and this is how it's going to impact you, and it's going to impact you.
And they're not going to like it.
It's going to impact you negatively. It's your order's not going to go when we originally estimated that it was going to go.
And really be aggressive or bold with, all right, if you had a August 1st estimated completion date, you might have to go and tell them November, and you're trying to beat that. But we've had a real problem, and this is not a 2-week problem.
Right.
So you need to communicate and make plans because it's going to be November. Now, that's a terrible position to be in. But the truth is, have we, as a business owner, you got to be able to talk through it and give them all the facts. So you got to share with them videos, pictures, whatever, but be fully transparent with your customers. None of them are going to like it. But the question is, can they empathize with you, and can they work around it? Now, some of them might have dates, they might have ceremonies, they might have other things, and we still got to work our tail off.
Let's talk about
to get through that.
We've done some of that already. We've gone through about 30% of the list, and it's a pretty big list because, like I said, orders in that department exploded this year. They're significantly up for various reasons, but they're significantly up. And we've gone through about a third of the list. most of the folks that I've talked to, they're being patient, they're understanding. They're disappointed, but they get it. Okay, and I think, in fact, quite a few of them said, "Look, and I appreciate the fact that you took the time to call me and tell me this ahead of time, and I understand. Do the best you can, and let me know when you're going to start my order, so I can get some idea of how I can plan on my end." Some will come back and say, I don't know what to tell you. I'm really, I'm backed into a date here. We've got a ceremony. I've got people invited. Okay. Well, what that does, that allows us to prioritize orders, and that's what we need. We need that kind of feedback. But most of the folks don't have that type of requirement.
Right.
But they did understand. So that's step one. Step two, fix the goddamn problem.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay? Fix the freaking problem.
Right.
And if, and we're good at that. Okay? This is not the first time we've had to fix a serious problem. So you break it down, you figure out what it is, you put a plan together, and then you move forward.
Maybe I can paint a little bit of a picture related to the world of beef jerky. So in the world of pavers are what? Are they considered porous? Or do they absorb water?
There's a certain amount
There's
of
a degree of
permeability, yes.
So here's an example of why does the weather affect this business? Well, we do a certain process where humidity is a big deal, right? Here we got a red clay paver, let's just say. And we kind of feel, our normal process is to feel it, is it dry or not, before we start working that paver.
Sure.
And if you feel this table, it feels dry to me, right? But what you don't know is it acting like a sponge and absorbing water, and is that going to wreak havoc where when that water dries, does it come through the surface of the paver, and does that wreak havoc? Well, when you feel something and it feels dry, that might be dry to the touch. But you can't measure dryness by feeling it, right? In the world of beef jerky, let me give you a quick analogy. You start with 100 pounds of a top round. You inject it with marinade, and it blows up to, let's say, 120 pounds. Then to make beef jerky, you cook it, and you dry it out, and it goes all the way down to 30 pounds. So 100 turns into 120, and it might go all the way down to 30. That's what's called yield in the food business. But it's all measurable. You weigh it before, you weigh it after you pump it, and then you weigh it after it comes out of the oven. And then by the way, there's regulations you got to comply with this.
Sure.
Because that's a food safety risk. We don't do any of that here. So I'm thinking, man, this is like beef jerky all over again. We got to weigh that paver at various stages of the process so we can figure out how many grams of water weight is it losing, right? So we are now doing that. We got a little postage stamp, and we're calculating every 3 hours how much is this thing drying out.
Let's, voice of reason here. We've never had this. This has not been an issue in the past to the extent that it has become an issue this year.
Right.
And we're dealing with more
We're throwing new processes
clay
in.
brick pavers than ever before. Concrete pavers don't seem to act this way. We don't seem to have a problem with this. But
the key word is seen. When you throw out 4 weeks of production, you just can't keep doing the same thing because the humidity is not going away in August, right?
Exactly right.
So we better start figuring something out, how to scientifically measure this thing, or we're not going to get our handle around it.
And the failure of the plan to expedite and get all these orders done during the summer months with help and
so pressure's up.
Took under the assumptions that there wasn't going to be technical issues with this.
Mm-hmm.
There are technical issues with this, and we've attacked it, and we've done something about it. Yes, was it a failure? Yes, but we have gone back. We've gone into this, and we've looked for ways to solve the problem, and I think we have.
Mm-hmm.
And going forward, it may change the dynamic of the whole process in regards to temperature control, humidity control. We have some of that now. We may have to step our game up, but we'll figure that out. The one thing you can't do is sit back and go, well,
gotta wait for the humidity to break.
We'll just wait till October. No, no, you cannot do that. What if this business was built in, Naples, Florida, or on the Gulf Coast somewhere, where it's 365 days of high humidity and heat?
Right.
We wouldn't have a business. Mm-hmm. That's not going to work. So we're going to find a way to solve the problem. We're already, I'm thinking, about a third of the way there. But it's the failure that put us into a position where we have to jump and find a reason, or not reason, but find ways to solve the problem.
So we talked about two major failures. Anything else come to mind? We missed our goal on that segment of the business. We had some labor flameouts.
Right.
The first brick by brick apprentice.
I'm down a book.
Those are two.
I haven't
read?
I know. I try to read 2 books a month.
Yeah, me too.
I'm down a book.
Right.
So.
But we're staying up on podcasts, so we're supplementing it.
That's right.
Now, what went well in the summer, in terms of a postmortem?
You know, the first thing that comes to mind is something that we started about 2 years ago. There's a whole new industry there's a whole new sub-industry in our industry that's coming to market. It's been in the market now for 2-3 years, maybe even 4. But we talked about this 4 years ago, and we started doing little bits and pieces with it. And it's, I think we can say it's the porcelain industry. Sure. Okay, it's an outdoor porcelain product, 20 millimeters thick,
which we're bullish on.
We're very bullish on. But again, not to get into the specifics of what we do and what we have to do. There are certain things about this product that are completely different
more challenging
than what we're used to and what we've been doing. The processes that have been developed here over the last 20 years for concrete pavers. You can't do a lot or even some of that when it comes to porcelain. But you can't sit on your hands and say, well, we'll see what happens.
It doesn't work.
We'll see if we'll see if the market takes off. You and I both said the market's going to take off. It's beautiful material. There's the evidence that we saw was that every manufacturer we knew was bringing this stuff over from Italy and marketing it.
Right. So
they weren't manufacturing.
They got 1 foot in the bucket. They're trying to be there without being there.
And they're trying to. My guess is they're also trying to decide: is this something that we want to start manufacturing ourselves? Because that's where their expertise lies.
Right.
Their expertise doesn't lie in being a distributor. Their expertise lies in being a manufacturer. Well, it's now being manufactured here in the United States.
But not by the concrete guys.
But not by the concrete guys.
Right.
It's one of the Italian firms said, let's bring our equipment to the States. Let's eliminate all that ocean container nonsense, and the exchange rate between the euro and the dollar and all that stuff. Let's do it here in the States. Why can't we? We can do it here. We've got the raw materials can be sourced here just as they can, in Italy. It was at that point when I personally made my decision that this is going to be something very, very important. And then I would start seeing this really good contractor put in a job that was all porcelain, like a pool deck or something like that. Then there's another guy, and then there's another guy. And it got to the point where you and I just we talked to the crew and said we got to find a way to do this. Now
cutting victories, we had a project.
But the inherent issues that come with porcelain that you don't get with concrete pavers came right to the top.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now what I think the both of us have learned, I don't know that we've learned this. We both have had this mindset. You've had it a lot longer than I have because for the longest time here we talked about this. We were in a survivor mentality here, but in the last 2-3 years, we see something, we see a project, we see a market, we see potential, and we're like, okay, we gotta look into this, and we do some risk management to eliminate, it's like the Freakonomics guys. The Freakonomics guys said everybody's got 100 great ideas. 2 of them turn out to be something. You need time to let that germinate before you can decide that this isn't such a great idea. Eventually, you're going to find 1 or 2 that turn out to be and will germinate into a great idea. This is a great idea.
Right.
An opportunity afforded itself. We actually had to make a decision when this came to us. A distributor out in Ohio found us. He was given the challenge to get somebody to do a porcelain compass rose because a big chunk of this project for this high-end landscaping, hardscaping, and softscaping project was going to be this porcelain material. He found Paverart. And thank God he did.
Mm-hmm.
He came to us and said, is this something that you guys can do? yes, we can do that.
Right. So we lean in and
Yeah.
we say yes, and we got it done.
But well, yeah,
With
but,
all the steps in between.
but with all the steps in between. But we were maybe 30 to 40% of the way there in terms of confidence in being able to actually do this. And they knew that. We let them know that. We were honest and above board with them. And it turned out to be...
It's gorgeous.
It's a beautiful piece. We went to the job site. We went to see... We interfaced with, in my estimation, one of the best installers I've ever talked to. And thank God he was the one that was responsible
Really
for putting it in.
top-notch.
Absolutely top-notch.
The landscape architect was great.
Landscape architect was...
Dwight.
She was terrific.
One of my takeaways from it is the guy that approached us, Dwight. What a gentleman! What a smart, thoughtful, in the truest sense of the word, partnership.
Yeah.
If we had 50 Dwights, boy, would life be totally different in terms of forget about revenue,
Right.
partnership, transparency, you name it. This guy was the prototypical gentleman of a customer.
He's the guy...
Really top-notch distributor. I think of distributors. I think of people grinding you down on price.
Yeah.
Get me the inventory. This guy was the exact opposite of that. This guy, I mean, he's the kind of guy you want to run through a brick wall for. I mean, really top-notch guy.
Honest. It was a genuine pleasure working.
When the truck was supposed to be here, it was here an hour early. I mean, just everything about him was meticulous. Gentleman. I mean, so anyway, so one of the learnings that you got on a hard project, you better go into it with a partner and not an adversary or a transactional type relationship.
We're taking that concept, where everybody's all in on this, and there's a date you have to hit. It's like one of those HGTV shows.
Right.
We got to get this. We have to rebuild the Taj Mahal in a week and a half.
Right.
Oh, really?
Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, today's demo day. Yeah, it's the Taj Mahal. It's going to take you 3 years to demo the Taj Mahal. Anyway, but that's what this was, and there was a certain date that needed to be hit. It looks like that date's going to be hit. By all measures, this was a success. There were hiccups along the way,
As you have with any project.
but when you're dealing with, there were basically 4 prongs to this project. There's the manufacturer that makes the material. There's us, we're on the same level as the manufacturer. We're actually manufacturing the compass rose, the design. So this is, that's one. 2 is the landscape architect. And she was sterling. She was on board, and she was meticulous. And that's what you expect. That's what she's driving for. And she wants people on her team that are just as meticulous as she is. And, she needs responses. Let me know that you can do this. I need to, she constantly follows up. She just did a great job. It was a beautiful design, by the way. She's responsible for. The third one was Dwight.
And the install crew.
And the distributor. That's number 3. But he seamlessly handled everything. Whatever we needed, if there was an issue with it, he would tell us. If it was something that he could do, he would tell us. He didn't hold back anything.
Right.
Always open, above board, upfront, honest. It just a genuine pleasure to do business with that man.
I'll give you an example.
Well, but there's the fourth prong that we didn't really get involved with until later in this process, and that was the installer. And Matt was the guy that Coljon, the company's called Coljon, and Matt was the one that basically led the team. The gentleman whose name escapes me for the moment, and I sincerely apologize for that, who has the experience with installing this type of porcelain material. And by the way, again, it's outside. This is an outside porcelain. This isn't a porcelain tile like you get inside. This is much thicker, much more difficult to deal with. And you're right, he was absolutely top-notch. So those were the 4 main assets that were trying to make this project work, and they came together beautifully.
So we came out of the summer then. That's a victory. I couldn't agree more with you. A new segment of the market. Who knows if it's going to take off?
Can't wait to get the next project.
Yeah, I mean, and now we can market it. Now we can figure it out. But massive victory.
Oh, massive! And the confidence that we now have.
And by the way,
we were confident before.
How does this happen?
What's that?
How do we have a victory on this?
How do we have a victory?
So number 1, we said yes. We leaned in a little bit.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Big shout out to Brian. Brian touched this from soup to nuts. Nobody touched this except for Brian, I don't think, right?
Brian took responsibility for all aspects of this,
From packaging to cutting.
from the design phase, which was very difficult initially, okay, because what you're trying to do, what he's trying to do, and I took a back seat on this. I just shut
Brian was
up.
the lead.
It's
Right.
That first Zoom call by Zoom.
Right.
Major component in this was the Zoom calls. Brian took the lead in dealing directly with the landscape architect to understand what she wanted, and she made changes. Initially, she made several changes that Brian had to, adhere to, all along the way. Requires patience, understanding, education, and a really good idea of what the concept was that she wanted. And Brian got that.
From a design standpoint.
Then what he has to do is take that.
Manufacturers.
Well, he's got to design it. Okay, he's got to make that work and get the design approved. Then what he's got to do is assign how much material we need to get. We contact Dwight. We have to figure out. Okay, we have to figure out. What would we expect to break, waste? What's going to happen with? Went through all of that. He did that. Then the next thing he has to do is have to make the thing, and then we have to figure a way how the hell we're going to package this and send it. And he did that. And I dare say that the packaging of this was
a bigger breakthrough.
It's a huge breakthrough. It's I get excited just talking about it.
Well, I think it's safe to say Brian did masterfully on it.
Yes.
I mean, it really did. And oh, by the way, Brian's consumed with it. He wasn't letting anyone touch that thing.
No.
Which I kind of, and this is where Brian's good. I'm like, let's train some people along the way and bring other people. And Brian's like, hell no, we ain't doing that. And I'm like, all right, let me just defer to him. Let me trust Brian.
Well, he's right.
He's right.
He
is right.
If you think about
That's where I inject chaos.
Well, no. It's good. Well, it's yes, we have to do that.
Eventually, somebody's going to have to.
We got to figure it out.
But he's figuring out to make sure that the concepts that he's learned when he was going through all his cutting tests and all that he can apply that. Now he needs help getting the stuff up on the table, that kind of stuff.
So shout out to Brian for figuring it out and carrying it through every step of the way and babysitting that manufacturing and the packaging all the way through. While that's going on, we still got to pay the bills.
Right.
And John's running the other side of the shop. And getting stuff done and getting things on the floor, getting things out the door, keeping the cash flow. So props to John.
Yeah.
And
props to John.
While we're running through the Nightmare on Engraved, Nick is getting things done.
Yeah.
So 2 big flameouts, but the porcelain and everything that went on around it to keep this place humming. Props to Nick, John, and Brian on that side of the wall.
It's if you're looking at an example of how a small business needs to operate, both in dealing with failure and dealing with success, I think this summer at Paverart has given you that.
Mm-hmm.
And yes,
I think we got kicked in the balls.
But
10 ways to Sunday.
We're going to learn.
But we are getting back. We're getting our mojo back.
What's the argument? You learn more from your failures than you do
That's
from
right.
your successes. I think that's baloney. Okay, you learn a lot from your successes. Also, the next time we have to do a job like that, there's probably 2 or 3 things that we're going to do differently. Okay, and we figure them out on the fly. But in regards, they're minor in regards to the overall impact of the finished product. I can't wait to get drone photos. I can't wait to, maybe we make another road trip. Whatever it is, that success, we've learned from that success, and the confidence that you gain is immeasurable. The failures, we're going to learn from that too, but you have to learn. You have to plan as a result of those failures. You have to fix those things that were a problem. If you don't, you're just going to fail again.
Yeah, look, I think
it's real simple. This is not, we're not splitting the atom here, okay? But you've got to learn from those successes you're going to make, or from those failures, and you got to make sure that you're not making those same mistakes.
I think a lot about, part of my obsession with business and my joy of it, my love of it, is how do you talk to a 14-year-old kid versus an 18-year-old kid? How do you tell the story, kind of going back to Ray? The path that Ray is on, the march towards 18 years old, that's different than John Doe, in a way that when we go into the Camden Votech and we start advising them on advanced manufacturing, we get the kid that's hungry, right?
Yeah.
And with all this experience, the pain of the John Doe, the Ray, the shining star of Ray, all those things that we talk to the kids in a way. Look, I'm convinced if we had a 15-year-old kid that goes through the whole thing, through the brick by brick apprentice, the question is how many zeros is he going to have by his name at the age of 40 if he's got the patience? Because we know the shit, what it takes to be successful, because we're freaking old. We got experience. What we need is the kid that has a little bit of trust, that wants to go through it with some hunger, right?
Yeah.
And we can train you on anything, right? Smarts is always a help, but if you've got that tenacity, we can build that and we can mold that into anything. Now, what we've seen is, this is tough in a teenage world where there's not a lot of kids working, but we've seen enough examples, and Ray's the shining star of somebody that's grown in 2 years, that if he continues it, he's got a bright future no matter what he does. So I think that's the key, is to keep reflecting on the pain, the failures, to figure out next time what's going to be done different on our end.
Agreed.
And how do we tell this story?
Yeah.
But summer, this is a brutal summer. Hot, harder weather than you remember weather like this?
It's been, every summer is hot and humid, but not to the extent that this summer has been.
This one has kicked our ass in terms of just
exactly.
pure business results. But I think the small business owner, you got to say, all right, what were the wins? And you can always score yourself. Did they balance out the failure? Who the hell knows? Like, financially, probably not a good summer. Not what I thought it would be. But all right, so how long do we want to cry about it? I'll give another win. Somehow we managed to pull off this podcast and start taping, right?
I was thinking the same thing, yeah.
I mean, how do you rate the podcast? Does it make the win list, or just something we got done on the side?
Again, when we started talking about this, I mean, I started actively listening to, personally, I only speak for myself, I won't speak for you, but I actively started listening to podcasts about 1.5 years ago. We both have long commutes into work, to and from, and you can listen to so much music, and you just get
News is depressing.
The news is depressing, and the political rhetoric is just, the stupidity abounds. I'm sorry, it just does. Mm-hmm. And you're looking for something a little bit more meaningful. So you're either going to do books on tape, which you have no place to play. It's not tape anymore. Tape. It's on your iPhone. Books on iPhone.
I still have an 8-track, by the way, at home.
Yeah, well, that's
talk about old school.
You should. Yeah, that's right. You should be ashamed of yourself. At any rate, the chicks dig it. Is that how you got Kim? Hey, check out my John
Travolta.
Yeah, right in the middle
Staying Alive.
Right in the middle of Stairway to Heaven, it has to
with the white suit
to the next track to finish the song. Wow, that's a great concept.
So you got into podcasts.
Anyway, got into the podcasts, and the more I listen to them, the more podcasts. It's interesting. You'll listen to one podcast and they'll talk about something that leads you to another podcast, which they talk about something that leads you to another podcast, because they're interviewing people that usually have their own podcasts. And if you're interested in that person, you go to their podcast. And it just gets you thinking. It gets your creative juices going. It gets your cerebral synapses firing, and you want to, you feel like you're getting inside information. You're getting some really good stuff, and it's just making you think, which I think is a very positive thing. But you and I started talking about the different podcasts that we were listening to. You turned me on to All In. I got into the whole Mike Rowe thing. You and I started listening to the Mike Rowe podcast. And I got into the Freakonomics guys and listening to Stevens podcast. So one thing led to another, and we started talking about maybe we have something to offer. And as is usually the case, what happens with us is this sounds like a pretty good idea. Let's ruminate over this for a couple of weeks and see what we think. And at the end of a couple of weeks, we said, the hell with this. We can make this work. You approached Dominic. Dominic, how do we do this? Dominic figured it out. So it's invaluable experience for our producer, Dominic Oliveto.
Shout out number 89.
No, shout out number 90.
90.
89 is early. Shout out number 90. And and away we went. We figured we had enough topics. We set a goal to do 52 of these by the end of the year, which is on average 2 a week. And we thought we had something to say. Now, in my opinion, I would consider this a win because, of course, you're going to be a little nervous. What's the listing when you're talking? It's the greatest fear. The greatest fear is speaking in front of a group of people. Then the next biggest fear is dying.
Yep.
Seinfeld had something to say funny about that. I forget what it was, but
You rather be in the casket versus giving the eulogy.
that's what it was. Yeah, which is pretty funny and very much on point. We got over that really, really quickly. I don't have a problem talking in front of people, and I get a big mouth, and I can,
But it is hard.
so
It is something that you got to dedicate time to, planning what you're going to talk about, doing the actual thing.
Yeah.
And I would definitely consider it a win.
There's no question. I think it's a win. Now, whether or not we're having any impact, that's
where you need feedback. And
we need feedback. And by the way, we would encourage anyone and everyone who is listening to this podcast to give us some feedback. And
I think it's been a good creative endeavor. It's been fun. I would think if it's not fun, whatever it is you're going to pursue,
I've enjoyed it.
You're not going to do it for long,
Yeah.
So I gave a post yesterday. A shout out to you, Kim and Dominic. I've been doing Hustle or Bust from a blog for 10 years. I've had more fun the past 6 months as we kind of relaunched the website, done this podcast. By a far stretch, more fun in the past 6 months than the previous 9.5 years. So. That's a credit to you, working with you.
Well, look, how many blogs did you write?
A couple hundred.
Yeah, so
that's over 10 years. So it's not a huge endeavor, but still
that's
a couple hundred.
I wrote one. I wrote one blog. Very proud of that blog.
Right.
I'm going to write more.
Now, shout out to your wife. You and your daughter threw a retirement party for her, and it was amazing how many people came up to me. Your cousin, different people that you had at the party. They were listening to the podcast. They were giving feedback on the podcast.
My brother.
I mean, there's people listening to this that it was kind of surreal. Oh, I caught you on the podcast. It was great when you pulled up the dog. I'm like, my God, I forgot about pulled up Henry. We introduced Henry as the first guest. The rescue dog. So, but it was kind of surreal when people are actually. There's a lot of lurkers out there. You have no idea that they're listening to it. Who knows how many there are? But
Henry says hello, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, Henry's always welcome at Paverart.
He got his summer cut. He got his summer cut yesterday. We're only 3 months too late on that. He looked like Henry the Shaggy Dog, but quite a few people did. Come up and mention that.
I'm certainly looking forward to Labor Day, getting through the summer, looking at the fall, and then turn our attention to some new things here.
Fix the failures, expand on the successes, and move on from there. What's the next target date? New Year's Day?
I would say early December when you do a formal business review of your year and you start planning next year. Late November around Thanksgiving, from a holiday standpoint, you want to start thinking about planning. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the look back. You start setting new goals for the new year and seeing what worked and what didn't.
During the holiday, a little bit of the air gets let out of the balloon, so you've got some time to put an effort in planning for the following year. So
I think the key with planning is holidays are built-in checkpoints, whether it's Labor Day, Memorial Day, Thanksgiving. Those are checkpoints on the planning. Can't be a one-time-a-year thing. It's got to be a every 3-month interval where you look at what's working, what's not, setting goals. It's kind of a living and breathing thing. You want to get into that habit.
Well, I guess that's as good a place as any to end this particular podcast. This is Mike and Mark and Dominic. Shout out number 91. We'll talk to you later. And again, if you have any feedback at all, we'd love to hear it, and be very, very honest. We appreciate the honesty. Take care and have a good week.
Good job.